Okay. Next, Richard. Going to unmute you. We have Richard Johnson from Grove City Gardens in Blackfoot. A totally different story. And Richard, you're unmuted, and just go ahead and tell me when to move along in the PowerPoint slides, and I'll just go to the next. Are you here?
All right, you got me all right?
Yep.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you great.
Well, I want to tell everybody thanks for the opportunity here, and thanks to everybody who's helped contribute throughout the whole class time here. It's been a good exercise for especially me and my family. Little background: we started in about '08 with an acre behind our backyard. We have a couple acres here, and so we decided to. A neighbor of ours actually down the road says, hey, you know, you ought to come to the Pocatello Farmers Market. You guys grow good produce, you might sell it. So we tried that, and with having 7 children, the oldest now is 22 and the youngest is soon to be 8, which is comprised of 6 boys and 1 girl. We decided to press forward with that, and so we did. And then in '09, we went from 1 acre to about 10 acres. And then by 10, we were up to about 18 acres. Then in 12, we ended up buying a corn maze and also a Mexican roasted corn business. And so we're up to 40 acres. And with that, it has been a challenge. We covered the Pocatello Farmers Market on a Wednesday and a Saturday, and Rexburg on a Friday, and then Jackson Hole on Saturdays, starting after the 4th of July for 12 weeks. In the process of that, you can go to the next slide there. What we've learned most is first of all, is this enterprise assessment and record keeping. And I have to reiterate from the previous presenter is QuickBooks is a must. And that's something we're implementing more and getting more of a handle on. In the past, we've just been doing everything by an Excel spreadsheet to kind of track each market and our home store sales and things of that nature. And we got to make time for family. This is an older picture here of about 3 years ago, pardon that. We just this afternoon got back from Salmon with some family up there camping for the last 3 or 4 days and enjoying the family and the atmosphere of the outdoors and such. So you have to make time for those things, and it's when it's spring break for the kids we end up taking that trip, and because after this we get real busy. As you can see the next picture there, Spencer's our youngest. He's on the tractor, and then you got Connor and Blake on the old spud planter there. And that's one thing we've looked at and doing is years ago we used to plant our spuds by hand. And after we got going through things, we've just found, hey, we're spending too much time as a family doing things. We're not as productive as we should be. And so we found an old spud planter that really made a big difference. In the process of that, it helps us with our potatoes. It now costs us very little to plant and harvest those potatoes. On the next slide, go ahead. One of the things we did is, as we got started here, we were renting a greenhouse from the high school. The FFA wasn't using all of them, and they got a new ag teacher and kind of forced our hand because they decided to put animals in their greenhouse. And so we had to build our own greenhouse. And at the time, it was a bit nervous, but as we analyzed everything, and the results of that have been just phenomenal. You see Connor in the upper left-hand picture there planting flowers, and then we don't do flowers anymore because as you do those analysis of things, you find out what works and what doesn't. And Spencer's down below there with me. And one thing we've done in our greenhouse this last year is we put in a hot water heater that runs off the natural gas, and we made 2 8x8 grow tables which have a wafer board as a base with that 2-inch blue board insulation sheet on top of that, then another piece of wafer board with hot water PEX pipe weaving back and forth, and then about a 2-inch layer of sand. And then we made a quick little frame out of some PVC pipes so we can pull another piece of greenhouse film over that table. And what that's done for us is taken us, instead of waiting just for the natural heat during the day and then the heat of the greenhouse trying to heat that whole greenhouse, is we just heat these 2 8x8 tables with a recirculation pump pumping that hot water through. We've been able to germinate things like our summer squash and our cucumbers in 2 to 3 days, and our peppers from 7 to 10 days instead of taking 2 to 3 weeks. So it's been a big improvement for us on that. And those things, as we've assessed things, it's made things very streamlined and also keeping our costs down. One other thing you see in the trays in the bottom here, we use what we call earth pots. We get the larger ones to put our seeds in, and then we transplant them right in the ground. There's zero transplant shock, and we don't have to transplant the larger pots or things of that nature. So we've kind of streamlined some things. The cost of those pots or earth pots are a little more than using just soil and plugs, but the big thing is these have zero transplant shock, and it gets our crops off to a faster start. Next slide, please. Another thing we've evaluated is that we do everything on a standard 40-inch bed, and you can see on the bottom right we've got we're planting peas there, just using an old John Deere plate planter. But on the left, and you can see that our beds are quite long. We used to use one of those one-row earthway planters. Right there, that's my father, Charlie, and the kid's grandfather. And what this has done is our neighbor had this 6-way planter, or 6-row planter that they got from Johnny Seeds, and they couldn't get it to work. So they says, go try it and see what you can do. And what we found is you have to have a firm bed, and that'll roll and plant. And so we went from taking probably a day to plant carrots, because we put about 6 to 10 lines on a bed. Now we can do this 6-row planter. We'll put 12 rows of carrots on a 40-inch bed, and we'll be done. We can plant that bed in less than 5 minutes. So it's really helped us to streamline and make better decisions. As you see there, the financial details, we've done some things with the equipment to help us, but we've also found that we had to hire a few employees to help us at times. And one of the things we've done is, instead of us doing all the payroll taxes and such, by the advice of my accountant, was to go find a temporary employment agency that will let you hire the people you want, but let them run the paperwork and take care of the payroll and the taxes and the workman's comp. So it leaves zero risk for us, especially for the workman's comp and things of that nature, because they're really employed by someone else. It doesn't negate the fact that we still have safety meetings and things of that nature, but it's minimized the risk for us. Next slide. One of the big things we learned at the market about the third year is, how do we get people to buy more of our produce? And we looked at the grocery stores and saw what they did and how the produce is piled high and how it's somewhat elevated. And so what we did over the winter back in 10 is we just took some angle iron and made these frames that would fit on our folding plastic tables. And we use these black produce bins. We pick them up from a local grocery store because they get them sometimes. They don't have a use for them. And so we use them, and it's easy for us to pack and load. And so what this has done for us is, after that, we put those tables, and we saw our sales go up quite significantly. And so it's one of those things, as we evaluated, things over time, what we can find to give us a more exposure and get a better feel from our customer. As you get this picture here, these two are taken in Jackson Hole. What we have is, on a Friday night, we'll go to Rexburg. When we're done, we load everything up and go to Jackson Hole. And when we first started doing that in about 2010, we didn't have any way to keep our produce fresh and cool. And so the next winter, we found a used gooseneck horse trailer. We pretty much gutted out all the stalls for the horses, and we put in a refrigerated unit and insulated it. Now when we go to the markets, we have good fresh produce. In the overshot of that trailer is where we sleep, so it doesn't cost us anything to sleep when we're overnight, and it's been very helpful that way. It's just some of the things we found that helps us in, getting a bigger bang for our buck and being smarter at what we do. Next slide. This here is also at the Jackson market. That's our son, Jeremy. He's actually on his LDS mission in Vancouver, Washington. But as you can see, we try to load things up, make it look good. We have banners in front of our tables so people can't see underneath the tables. And the reason why we use those is because we don't have a tablecloth because of our display trays showing everything. And then in the back, you see that on the top right, there's a little green thing there. That's our corn roaster. In 2012, we were approached by actually there was a family over in Driggs, Idaho that had bought a couple of these roasters, and we actually supplied them their sweet corn for their El Elote Loco, or is it in English, Mexican crazy corn. And when their kids were done with college, they says, hey, you want to buy that? And so we did. And it was a learning experience for us, but we knew how much volume they did because we supplied them with the sweet corn. And it's been a natural thing for us to give a value-added product that not only at the farmers markets, but now we're also like at the Eastern Idaho State Fair. We get asked to do weddings, company parties, and it helps us to promote our local produce as well. So it's been a natural fit. It has extended the need for us to plan better and make better decisions. And part of that, too, is that some of the events that they were going to, as we went to them, we found that some of them weren't quite profitable enough. So we decided to cut out some of those events and focus on the larger events that we do a lot better at. But that's the big thing is we found that to help us is, you know, on the financial planning, you got to draw customers to your place. And so you've got to have a quality product, good signage, and visibility of things. Next slide. Also in 2012, we'd been supplying a corn maze just north of us by a buddy of mine that we went to college together. He actually builds and designs mazes across the country and had his own here. And anyways, we've been supplying them pumpkins for a few years previous to 12. And he decided that in his life that his focus is really best doing building corn mazes instead of running one. And so we bought the assets of that maze and moved it to exit 98 off of I-15. And from that, it's been an experience for our family of having fun and being more involved in the community in the region here. But the other thing is also entailed the need for much more employees. And so we found that we had to find ways to find a balance because this starts to, like you see there, from mid-September to the end of October, 1st of November. And it's helped us to leverage our Mexican crazy corn, the corn maze as well, with some of our produce. But the big thing is that this last year we were supposed to have a couple guys to come in to help us harvest some sweet corn on a Friday night, which was our homecoming football game. The guys didn't show up to do the work and pick the corn, and we needed that for Saturday. And so I asked the kids if they would head over there to pick the corn, and when they got done, you know, homecoming was, or the football game was half over, and they just says, no, we're not going in. And that became a turning point for us to try to decide, hey, how do we make things more effective and more efficient so as a family we can do the things we want to do but also still accomplish and meet the needs of our customers. And so I'll get to that, the extent of that story in a moment, but let's go to the